Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much for being here with us. I know it's been a complicated day for you, and I really appreciate your making us a priority. I'm wondering if you can just start by giving us a quick overview of some of your career highlights and some of your work that our audience may not be as familiar with as they are with the Myst series.
I'll attempt to do that. I'm catching up on a bite to eat here, and I apologize for that. But so I'm a Montrealer, an English Montrealer, but I did do a swing through Europe and started a theater in East London called the Half Moon, which is still going. And I'm mainly a director, but we did a lot of directing, writing, and acting in the East End of London. And then I came back to Canada and did mainly directing, but have acted on stage. And in Montreal, the Canadian film system is such that it's cheaper often to shoot for American films to shoot in Montreal than in California because of tax credits and so on. So I ended up being able to act on screen in small parts, occasionally smaller and occasionally less small, with people like Gene Hackman, and in one case William Hurt came to town. We shot a movie and we became good friends. So I proposed to him that he act in a production of Richard III that we did in Winnipeg, and that was Mr. Hurt is an extraordinary actor who raised the game for everybody else on stage. He's also a little bit of a offstage, a bit of a prima donna, but that's because he's 100% an actor, and so I've been able to through being in Montreal and through getting to know people. For instance, I did a scene in David Mamet's Heist, and that's entirely because when I was at McGill back in '69, I had a small company that I ran, and actually, it turned out that David Mamet was in town that summer, so he was an actor in my company long before he was the David Mamet that we know of Pulitzer Prize winning plays and Hollywood and so on. So I've been very fortunate to be able to do a number of things. And the other thing, of course, in Montreal is that Ubisoft set up, which is a French company, set up a subsidiary in Montreal, thanks to, again, lots of tax credits. And as it happened, where I live in Montreal is in the same block as the huge Ubisoft major studio. Anyway, so when I went to work for Ubisoft and did Achenar, for instance, I didn't even have to cross the road; just walk down the block to do my voiceovers or whatever. So yes, I'm mainly a director, but have acted in the French side of town as well. I get cast as the bad Anglo, as they call it in Montreal. And occasionally I have to play. They think since I'm English, I must be Jewish, so they cast me in Jewish parts in French parts as well, although I'm not Jewish, but I have played rabbis and so on. But that's the nature of Canada and Quebec at the moment. So yes, I've been very fortunate to be able to do a number of things, including Achenar in Myst IV.
So before you took part in the game, did you have previous knowledge of the Myst series, or had you played any of the Myst games?
I will confess, I'm a total Luddite. Okay, I probably didn't even know what a video game was. So I will probably disappoint everybody in the room in terms of my understanding and knowledge of what exactly Myst IV represented in the history of video games and in the history of the arc of the Myst stories itself. So no, to answer your question, I had no experience before. Since then, because Ubisoft is right there, and as an Anglo in Montreal, you do get voiceover and so on. The other major part I just played is just out last year was in Prince of Tides, Prince of Persia, and I played the again evil Vizier. So I seem to get cast that way. I'm a nice person, believe me, though.
What was the audition process like for the role? I'm curious because Brian Wrench was with us last summer and he told us a little bit about his audition experience. So just wondering how yours might compare.
Oh boy, it's so long ago, I forget. I only know that it just happened very quickly. And I think, yeah, I think it's just my essential external evil nature with a heart of gold inside that I think they saw. I will say that I'm not sure the acting or the actors was the main focus of Myst IV. They'd been working for years, as you probably all know, on the graphics, and it was almost like the acting was put in afterwards in the whole thing. So yes, it was. It was a very short for me. I just went in and they liked it and they said, "Would you?" And I said, "Of course."
How is acting in a video game different than the other types of acting that you've done?
Video games have evolved. I mean, the picture that I put in your guest sort of portfolio there has the infrared reflectors on my face, but that's a more recent video game style. Myst IV was old fashioned. So what they did was they spent, like I say, 3 years on creating all these incredible worlds and the details and so on. And then as an actor, they hired me for essentially about a week in a studio in Montreal that is about almost the size of a football field, and the whole thing was green screen. So what I had as an actor, and I only ever acted with Aisha, with my sister. I never acted with any of the other actors during the shoot. But the main part of Achenar's shoot was they had built sort of running platforms and rooms, and I had the stone facsimile in my hand, and they gave me the real costumes, and all of this was all in a studio the size of a football field, but I was expected to run around on the ramps and climb ladders and so on. Meanwhile, on the other side, the very sort of against the wall, you had probably 40 computer screens and 40 computer technicians, and the directors and the art directors and the showrunners and so on. And they're all facing one way. The cameras are facing the other. And I have no idea what I'm doing because they haven't explained the story to me or anything. And nobody's watching me. Right? They're all watching the screens and the cameras are running and I'm running up and down and on platforms and waving the stone, and they'll say, "Okay, cut." And then they don't even look at me. What they're looking at is how the platform they've arranged, is it inch by inch perfect to fit into the computer background that they have created in 3 years working. Nobody gives you acting notes. Nobody tells you what the story is. There's no Stanislavski in this at all. There's a couple of lines, and yep, that's fine, good. And by the way, we do it over again? Could you make sure you are 2 inches to the left on the stairway and 3 inches to the right when you're coming down the ramp. Okay, we'll shoot it again. And then once again, you have the entire focus of this huge football field on the 40 television screens, and I'm running around on this, set, all of which is painted green, right? So they can get rid of it, and basically I'm running around in the middle of their television screens on their pre-graphicked, the work they've been spending 3 years on. Anyway, I've never been able to totally understand the story. But when I do, I got the game and I clip on the YouTube and so on, I am amazed at the imagination that went into the creation of the worlds. That this I'm running around on is just basically, pieces of wood all painted green.
Was it challenging to act essentially by yourself with the camera representing the player rather than having another actor to play off of in your scenes?
Yes, it's. Acting is reacting, right? And you should be there with the other actors in the moment, and whatever they give you, you try and give something back. So it's absolutely difficult. That was, by the way, William Hurt's genius, right? He disappeared into the role that he was playing, to the point where if you were acting with him, he just dragged you with you into that reality. And like I say, he was able to up the game of everybody else on stage. But there I am running around feeling like, quite frankly, a bit of an idiot, running around on this pretty rickety constructed set that's and nobody's even looking at me. They're looking at whether the platform fits perfectly into the pre-designed graphics or not.
One of the things that's interesting about Myst IV as compared to some of the other games in the Myst series is the voice-acted journals. What was the process of recording the voice lines for the journals like?
It's so that's separate from this whole, football field green screen stage. You just go into, basically into a sound studio, and you just, you give them the lines in different ways, and louder, faster, or whatever is what you get back at it. So yeah.
I know that it's been a long time, and I understand that, but just wondering if there was anything about the character of Achenar that particularly stood out to you, anything that influenced the role for you, anything that you tried to bring to it?
There was an element of, calling my brother mad, but knowing that you were mad yourself. That was kind of interesting, but again, the difficult part was the story was never totally explained. So I was playing on one day the bad guy, and then towards the end of the week they would say, "Oh, by the way, here when you use the stone to destroy the time machine or whatever it was, you become the good guy. You're sacrificing yourself for your sister." And I go, "Oh, okay, that would have been interesting to know maybe from the beginning, but maybe that's also a deliberate thing." They tell you you're the bad guy, and then suddenly now you can change and become something else. Anyway. So yeah.
It seems like it would be difficult to portray a redemption arc. Sorry if that's spoilers. If you haven't played the game, you should have. It sounds like that would be challenging to do without really being given a clear sense of your arc.
Yeah, but sometimes, you just do things, and maybe you don't necessarily need to understand the full everything. Maybe you just, action, do it. And that can be a good thing too. I was, puzzled by the whole Myst phenomenon. And I'd be interested to know from anybody in the audience, or if this is a fair question, what was the difference between, that's a mosquito I'm smacking here. There we go. the difference between Myst One, which clearly rang the bells of a culture and a community, and Myst Four, which, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't quite cross the line with the same bells and whistles. I'm very curious what the difference was and why people think that Myst Four. What did Myst Four miss?
I think, and I would be happy to pass this off to any audience members that would like to volunteer their opinion too. In my opinion, it's not that Myst 4 missed the mark in any way. It's that the first Myst was so unique and so different and so groundbreaking. When it came out, there just wasn't anything else like that. It was a complete reimagining of what video games were and could do. And by the time that Myst 4 was released, just the genre was a lot more established in those directions. Um,
Is Can I ask a very simple? Is it just too complicated? Is that one of the issues with Myst Four?
I don't think so. Um, does anybody from the audience have any thoughts they would like to voice about that? Um, I'm going with the first hand that I saw, which is Harley.
Honestly, personally, I love Myst 4. It really just wrong to me when I played it. But I do understand. I think, I think for some people, there's the complaint about some of the acting. Yes, but personally, I always like the acting. It hit for me in a way that I just don't see the complaints personally, but other people do. Uh, the only thing I really think that really ended up being the major sticking point for me in retrospect, and I agree with this with other people, is that some of the puzzles were kind of not as well thought out as they could have been. So I think some people kind of jump on the bandwagon of blaming the acting in addition to the puzzles, when I think how you take the acting is subjective to each individual person. Because for me, I don't see the complaints some people have about the acting with certain lines, whereas,
Oh,
but that's just
all
me,
right. All
apparently.
right. Okay, so
I
as one of
think,
the actors, I'll have to take some of the blame then, I guess. Okay.
well, I think you also have a very friendly audience here. Like, I don't think that the whoever was complaining about Myst 4, I don't think that those people are here tonight. There, there was a great response when they heard that you were going to be here. A lot of disappointment when we weren't sure that it was going to work out. So you're very much among supporters here. I'm gonna give it to the next hand that I saw.
Hi. As far as the a lot of the faults that I see with Myst 4 are actually like on the in the area of puzzle design. It's like I see it as the difference of the Myst games were not actually meant to be filled with actual difficult puzzles. It's rather that how you actually find the answers to the answers to them is just a normal investigation and understanding what is going on in the world. Where with Myst 4, even if you took these puzzles out of context, they would still be difficult puzzles.
Right.
As for the acting, is the acting? It was like like it was sort of it felt like a brand of hamminess and acting that I actually really like, but But a lot of people, will probably treat it more harshly, and some I think have actually treated that aspect harshly because of how much more frustration that they have been subjected to by the puzzles themselves. So it's
Right.
like the elevated difficulty of it is, I think it actually causes a lot to sour towards the whole thing.
Hmm. Well, okay, that's anyway, for me it's good to know. I'm not going to in any way try and defend myself from ham acting. But maybe what I described as the creation process might explain some of the emptiness of the acting, right? The fact that we're out there alone Without a proper story that we know what's going on, basically just trying to emote the words with nothing to play with. But I'll accept if you call it ham acting. I will accept that as I won't sleep tonight, but that's all right.
So, for context, I realize that you probably can't see individual audience members, but Parker, the person that you were just talking to, is dressed in quite a realistic Achenar costume from Myst
Oh,
IV.
wow. Okay.
So, if it would be all right, I would love to pivot to some audience questions now. If we have anybody in the room, that would be great. Also, if anybody is following along on the stream, feel free to post questions either in the Twitch chat or in the panelist questions section of the Discord. Do we have anybody in the room that has any questions? Yes.
I'll just throw in here very quickly in terms of Achenar and Achenar costumes. So there was a period just after I had shot the bits for the video, because I'm in the same area of Montreal where Ubisoft is. I would go in, to get a chicken sandwich or something right in the restaurant across from Ubisoft. And as I walked in, the whole team, that was working on certain aspects were there, and they'd all turn to me and go, "Hey, it's Achenar!" And so I was able to feel a little bit of feedback. Same thing happened at university. If I go and talk about theater or something, suddenly, in the middle of a talk where everybody was absolutely falling asleep, suddenly they'd wake up and they go, "Oh my God, that's Achenar!" And suddenly I had everybody's attention. So, anyway.
So my question is, I looked at your IMDb profile before this presentation, and I noticed that you've acted in other games as well. Have the other games you've acted in told the story more?
They're the new technology since 2000 is utterly different. Okay, so the Prince of Tides, for instance, Prince of Persia, I've forgotten the exact name. By then, we're into motion capture. So Myst IV was, they recreated the world graphically on a computer and then taped the live actors in costume. With the real props and so on. By 20 years later, what they do is you're in a much smaller studio with cameras on four sides, and you're in special motion capture suits that have 148 reflectors on them, the kind that are on my face in that picture. That goes along with this in the program. And so you actually can act with other actors. You're not in costume. You're in a black outfit with, like I say, 148. So every joint, on every knuckle, there's one of those reflectors, or on your finger and so on. So every time you move, the cameras, all they capture is the movement of these reflectors. So that is then given to graphic artists who use the motion, the real body motion, as captured by these reflectors and the infrared cameras, and they then construct an animated character out of that. So that's the more recent, and even. What they even do is they'll put a camera right on your face, sort of literally right there, with all these reflectors. So it captures the movement of your mouth, the movement of your nose, the brows, your eyebrows, and everything. That is so far beyond anything that Myst IV was. So you often get to play scenes in this thing with other actors, and you have pretend swords that have equal. They have. They would also have reflectors on them, so you can see the motion and so on. It's a little bit more alive, but there's also some artificial acting problems with that as well. So you get more energy between actors, I think, in the more recent style of motion capture, because you are there with other actors. Sometimes 3 or 4 playing a scene all together. So it is sort of more fun, I think. Although I guess I am sort of defending myself. I think most video games do require ham acting, so a little bit over the not ham, but over the top.
I have a question here from our online stream. This is from Sporks. What preparations did you take to step into a role that had already been portrayed by another actor, and how did you make that character your own? You know, in the original Myst, Achenar was portrayed by Rand Miller, so wondering what it's like to step into that role.
Okay, I'm going to disappoint that person. I did no research. I didn't even know or see Myst 1. I basically auditioned, gave them what they think they wanted, and I just continued to give them that. And so you could, once again, maybe, you know, I wasn't influenced at all because I didn't know Myst 1, and I had no idea what the first Achenar was.
So from I1K, have there been any funny bloopers or events while shooting Myst 4 scenes?
Oh, wow. The whole thing always felt like a blooper, but it's I can't remember anything specifically. No, that you know that an outtake that would get people laughing or anything. No, I can't remember. I mean, it just all felt a little bit weird, you know. But that was at the time, you know, Myst 4 was in certain ways cutting edge, and we were all, actors included, we were dancing in the dark a little, trying to figure out, you know, how you do this.
So I have a question here also from the stream from Redwood Road. If you were given the opportunity, is there anything you would have changed about the plot regarding Achenar's or other characters' choices? I know that's kind of a challenging question to answer given what you've just told us about how little you were actually told about the plot.
Yeah, it seems to me there's a lot of sort of otherworldly feel in Myst 4 that I don't follow or understand. I don't think there's any way that one could rewrite Achenar differently. I think he's, you know, what you want is what you get from that character. So I wouldn't know how to rewrite that. I would maybe push the mystical and mythical parts even further. I'm not sure they went far enough. But again, it's 2000, right? So we're just learning these things. So anyway.
From Squeefruit, did you have interaction with the other actors, i.e. portraying Cirrus and Yisha outside of filming? And did you know about what parts they were playing in the story?
No, I met my sister, and that was it. I didn't meet any of the other actors and never interacted with them.
Do we have any other questions from the room? Okay, there's somebody way in the back, so give me a moment to run over there.
Okay.
So we've talked a lot about your up and downs making Myst 4. What's been your most positive experience working on any project, be it, you know, stage acting or film or other video games?
Oh, wow. Are you talking just as an actor? Because doing Richard III with William Hurt in Winnipeg at the main stage in Winnipeg. It's now called the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. In 2003, that was a really, really good production. We actually, I think, sold like 107% box office or something. Obviously, thanks to William Hurt, but we really nailed the concept for that show. And that play, and I'm sorry, I love Shakespeare. I did a production of Midsummer Night's Dream in Russian at the Pushkin Theater. And in 1990, and it ran for 11 years in repertory. And so that was another highlight, I think. It was just at the beginning of Gorbachev was just on his way out. Yeltsin was about to become the new president. And at the end of rehearsals, we'd finish rehearsals at midnight in Moscow, and you'd walk out, and there had been tank maneuvers in Pushkin Square. Pushkin, of course, is the national poet of Russia. And so I was essentially doing a Shakespeare in Russian at their National Theater. And you'd go out at the end of rehearsal, and they had been doing tank maneuvers in the square in case there was going to be an uprising. And the irony, of course, is the very first McDonald's in Russia was in that Pushkin Square as well. So you had these two opposite sort of things going on at the same time. That was working with the Russian company was an eye opener at the time, and it was also a really, really good production as well. So there are a number of things that I've done that I started in Toronto. I started an outdoor Shakespeare company. It was called The Dream in High Park, and it seated about 2,000 people, and it's over 1 million Torontonians. In the first 20 years saw free or almost free Shakespeare sitting under some oak trees in the main park in Toronto. So I'm very proud of that, of having brought Shakespeare to audiences at non-Stratford festival prices.
Well, first, I would just want to make a comment because in the Myst games, they kind of have a history of having really just interesting actors bringing really interesting portrayals to their characters. Like Myst V, you had David Steers playing a very interesting character after you, and before you in Myst III, you had to follow Brad Dourif. Before him, John Keston was in Riven, and all of them bring their own unique personalities, and you could say ham to their characters because that's what their characters are written for. And I think you fit in. I think you fit in very perfectly with that tradition. And for me, you are acting like you portrayed the character as I always imagined he would be. I think you nailed it. Any ham was because that's what the character needed. I thought it was fantastic. But the question that I had was, do you feel like Achenar is a character or the type of character who you might have enjoyed or maybe could enjoy playing on stage, where you could do more with him and be able to, as you said, react in your acting?
Yeah, I thank you for those kind words. But you know what? I'd love to see Achenar in a Chekhov play. Where the irony of it is buried very deeply, and that that seeming pose of being the bad guy and the villain is actually covers over something that is a wish to actually help mankind, humankind, and get on with things. And Achenar as a character in the Three Sisters or in the Seagull would be fabulous. I'd love to play that.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what you were saying about learning Russian. I was fascinated how you could do an entire Shakespearean play, I can't talk with the mask on, in Russian. How do you prepare for something like that?
Okay, now you better be careful because you're asking me questions here. How long we're going to go. So that's a fabulous question. Okay, now first of all, I got hired at the Pushkin Theatre because they saw pictures of a production I had done of Midsummer Night's Dream in Canada, and they basically, it was part of a time, it was part of the whole Glasnost. So they were trying to get Western artists to work in Russia, and I benefited from that. So what I did was, I had a director's book that had 3 pages for 1 page. So on the one side, I had the original Shakespeare, which I knew. And on the extreme outside, I had the translation in Russian of the play that we were performing. And then in the middle, I had a word-for-word retranslation back into English of the Russian text, right? So I could, my Russian is not perfect, although I learned a certain amount. and was able to, I did have a translator in rehearsal for most time, but I was able to then absolutely identify what words we were talking about when I was giving notes, because I had the retranslation back into sort of semi-gibberish English, which had the meaning of the original. And in doing so, now here's a little interesting little side note. We discovered that towards the end, the translation that we were performing, which had originally been done in the 30s, had hidden tenets of Soviet propaganda in it. So it actually talked about the Soyuz, the Union, and so the actors pointed this out to me. So we were able to readjust the official translation a little bit and try and clean out some of those little subtle references to this, the great union of peoples. Anyway, so that was my main trick, was that I didn't just have the Russian text in front of me, and I didn't have the original. I had in the middle a word for word retranslation back from the Russian into English, so I knew exactly where the actors were when they were saying a line and what they were saying.
Hey, Guy. First of all, I just wanted to say I loved your work on Myst IV. I thought that Achenar's transformation was always very impactful to me and notable. And I was just, my question is, what was your process in preparing for the character, especially given what seems like what sounds like limited resources?
I again, okay, I had confessed to being a bit of a Luddite. So I found the whole process quite mesmerizing. And I'm sure that it's not, I mean, we're 2000, right? It's not something that as an actor, you in a theater school, you are trained, or even, that I had done anything close to before. So, if Achenar had been a Chekhov character, the preparation would have been entirely different. But in this case, you're dealing with a world that you don't know, in a world you don't know what's going on. And preparation, quite frankly, I don't know how you would prepare. You just have to follow an instinct. You have to be open, and there's always, there's the DOP who's telling you to do one thing, and there's a sort of a director, but not really, telling you to do something else. And the cameraman is saying, do it this way. And then the guy who's in front of the TV is saying, no, you got to be 3 inches to the right. So not only are you in this absolutely confusing world, for the first time, but then you're getting all these different voices because they themselves don't know how to do this, right? This isn't like, unlike a play where we've been developing how you direct plays and who does what, and the stage manager does this for a couple of 100 years. Suddenly you're thrown into this whole new medium, and nobody knows really what they're doing, any better than I did as this Luddite. Now I know more, having done a number of other video games for Ubisoft and other companies. So you know more that where you try and go to ask a question. Exactly how does this fit in? What exactly is the plot? How do you want me? Is it and so on. So for Achenar, it was pure instinct. It was like, okay, run up this thing, say the lines, and go. All right, here I go. And like I say, they didn't know any more than we did how you deal with this.
That sounds like fun. First of all, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I know we really
Oh.
appreciate it. My question is, on the tail ends of that, as you're working on something, and it's got to be, I'm assuming, a little spontaneous. That's the word. Were there any like unexpected surprises, or like something that ended up being fabulous? In that little bit of chaos?
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, the real surprise was finally being able to see it, right?
Oh, sure.
Again, if you're shooting a film, right, you can always go around and they'll play I mean, you see rushes, but you can also the director's playing back what you just did. You can look at it and you can say, hey, you know what? Give me another chance. I want to do that one more time. You have no idea. It's like boom, into a void. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't know you're not really getting feedback. I mean, the other show that I did, there was because of COVID, there hasn't been a great many things shooting for at least 2 years previous, but was this Prince of Persia, which, I mean, again, Ubisoft is a French company, right? So for Prince of Persia, they had a French director, and he was a very inexperienced director. Now, there I played the evil vizier, totally unacceptable, quite frankly, because I had to do an Indian accent and pretend that I was South Asian. But I took I took the check and I did the best I could. But the director, here I am trying to learn a South Asian accent, and thank God one of the graphic artists was actually from South Asia. He was Indian, and so I would be working with him in addition to doing the research online on the accent. And I do have family that are South Asian as well. But and this French director, who was a very amateur director, he enjoyed saying all the lines for you. I want you to say it this way, please. Okay, now take out the dagger and give me the dagger. And so you're trying to learn, to do a respectful South Asian accent and actor, and you have this guy from Paris, saying the lines with his French accent and trying also to do a South Asian accent with the French accent. So anyway, I'm not quite sure. It's not easy, I think.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, me again. I just wanted to say, you did I think you were talking about the kind of confusion of the situation of the filming of it. I think that kind of helped a bit, because I think for the character of Achenar in the story, I think he himself is a little confused about everything that's going on too, and I think it worked really well. And I just want to say, your version of Achenar is the Achenar that I think of when I come to try to write Achenar. Your voice is the voice that I pull for Achenar. My main question, I guess, is sorry, I had the phrasing and then it just slipped out. My main question is, when you're talking about all this insanity of it, and it's just this crazy process of just running through all that stuff. And I guess the question I have is, even had you, I guess you would rather have wanted more direction. So if you had gotten a bit more direction, do you think there would have been anything that you might have wanted to do differently?
Yeah, I think when I look at the clips now, I would like to have played it a lot more intimately. I think it should have been much closer. The camera should have been closer. I think it should have been don't do that. Don't do that now. No, 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 you can't. No, no, don't push the switch. That's not Aisha. That's really, and you could have, but because it was played in this huge football field, as an actor, you're going, who am I talking to? Okay, whoom, and you start shouting it. But if there had been a director who said, whoa, Guy, the camera is right there. It's right there. It's got you. Then it would have been inside as opposed to outside,
So I was super delighted the first time that I played the game. Achenar was my favorite character in the first Myst, and then seeing this portrayal was just so delightful to me. And what was even more delightful was seeing how much fun the actors seemed to be having. And so my question is, were there any specific moments that you still remember to this day being loads of fun, either while you're doing it or you stepped away from it and you were like, that was a really good one?
Again, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I can't say. I found the whole thing totally fascinating. So the whole process was fun, right? Cashing the check was fun too. I appreciated that. but there weren't any moments where I felt, I clicked with a technician, or the cameraman or something. Normally there's somebody that you get close to who'll come over and, just say, try that, and you go, okay. And this was just throwing it out there and crossing your fingers.
So going back to a couple of questions that we have from the stream, this is from Redwood Road. How did or do you feel about Achenar's actions and the resolution that came at the end of Revelation? How do you feel about how the story ended?
Well, it seemed to me that he did an honorable thing, and so I feel great about it.
And then we have a comment from Ivank, which is that you totally nailed Achenar.
Oh, well, thank you. Fine. Okay.
I'm the Achenar cosplayer in the room. And you probably don't really remember enough to say. But you probably don't remember enough to say. But the outfit, like, how much of it were you actually putting on yourself, and how much did you need actual other people helping you?
It seemed to me, again, I'll probably never get hired by Ubisoft again, but that the acting was the last thing they were interested in. Okay, and the costumes were there. I mean, shit, I'm going to say it. The costumes were, if they'd hired a real theater designer to design those costumes, they could have been subtle and felt the character more. So no, there was there was a very simple costume that came out of, I don't know, Rumpelstiltskin in an amateur playhouse or something, you just had to live with it, and that was fine. You just gave whatever you could to it, but nobody needed to help me put it on. No.
Yeah, as I had my costume, I basically based off of pics I get of you from the game and some pics that are of you on the green screen stage and all that.
Right.
And trying to examine that and figure out what is actually there from the resolution that I have to work with.
Right.
So it's like I'm trying to just see what's there and get and okay, what would that be if this was actually a real thing?
Yes.
And fill in the gaps there.
Okay, well, good for you. I really admire that creativity on your part. I have to tell you, the only thing I can see of you is the microphone. But okay, but that's great. All right, okay, right on, brother. Okay. Oh, that's great.
So we're getting toward the end of our time tonight, and I know that you've had a long day, so we don't want to keep you too long. Real quick,
Okay.
from the audience, just like popcorn, rapid fire. I want 4 people to tell me your favorite thing about Myst 4. First 4 hands that I see.
Oh, please.
My favorite thing is just that it exists. It is. Honestly, it's probably one of my favorite games, I think.
In addition to getting a fantastic Achenar, they got Peter Gabriel to do a song for the game.
Right on.
Every time I think I've forgotten that song, I'm reminded of that song. My favorite thing about Revelation will always be just the development of the characters, because the brothers were just these previously these two just, I don't want to say generic antagonists, but it was like, we're 2 bad guys. We're being bad. And we're pretty sketchy being bad. And I loved in Revelation getting to see just the development of them and getting to see kind of more of a history of their personalities through the journals and through your portrayals. And it was just interesting to see them become, as I want to say, people, like more fleshed out people, rather than just ambient book faces.
Yeah.
Hi, my favorite part is definitely the Achenar redemption arc and the way it was portrayed. It's always resonated with me, how a character or a person can do bad things but also do good things, that there's multiple sides to people. That always resonated with me.
So I went to the first 4 hands that I saw for Myst 4, 4 and 4. But I could tell you that there were a whole bunch of hands, and I couldn't go to everybody. So people had a lot of good things about Myst 4.
That's wonderful. If I can just say, my favorite thing, when I look at it now, even now, 22 years later, I'm pretty amazed at some of the graphics. That they were really working hard to bust through something with that, and I think they felt that's what's going to make this is the incredible worlds that we're creating graphically, and when I look at it now, I'm pretty in awe of what the work that those graphic artists did.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Guy, I want to give you the last word. Is there anything else that you want to say or share?
No, that's it. It was so wonderful to be invited, and thank you very, very much. I enjoyed the feedback, and I enjoyed the insights into Myst 4 that everybody brings to it. So thank you very much, you guys, and I apologize for the delay in this.
Not at all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn the microphone to you.
All right. Thank you.